Good evening, friends. Welcome. Parikalus Dongerner, hoş geldiniz arkadaşlar. We're very happy to have you all joining us this evening for the first in hopefully a long series of meeting the publishers. My name is Dr. Nick Matheu, and I'm the program manager at the Armenian Institute here in London. And I'm just going to say a couple of housekeeping things before I hand over to Director Tatevik to introduce this evening properly. So the first thing is that the session this evening is being recorded and it'll be put on the Armenian Institute's YouTube page afterwards. So if you wouldn't like to appear at all, then please make use of the stopping video function. This event tonight is part of a series of events for Women's History Month in celebration of International Women's Day. So I'll say a bit more at the end about the other events in this program, but we really hope that you'll join us for more of them. And it also falls underneath a generous grant that we were given by the National Lottery Heritage Foundation for a project which has 4 different themes, and you can find out more about this project on the Armenian Institute website. And the event tonight falls under a number of these themes. It's exploring gender for International Women's Day. It's also looking at the literary heritage of Armenians, and also looking at neighbours, historic and present. So we're really excited for the evening, and I'll hand over to Tatevik to introduce it.
Thank you, Nick. Welcome, everyone. Like Nick said, it's so exciting to host this event with one of our favorite publishers, learn more and talk about books. And one of Aras's own editors, Laura Sari, has kindly agreed to join us tonight and talk about their work. When we received the blurb about this event from Aras, it said an active contributor to cultural life in Turkey since 1993. Aras has been publishing lots of books, but I think it's not just contribution to cultural life of Turkey, but general Armenian communities' life everywhere globally. Aras has been such an important part of introducing Western Armenian literature and translated literature to all of us. So we're very, very excited to talk about your books, learn about your books, your fantastic publications, which reach hundreds of titles in Western Armenian and Turkish. Laura, I know you're part of Aras, bigger entity, but Aras has its smaller divisions. You have a children's division, you have Yesayan Room. I hope we'll learn more about it. And you've been running the bilingual children's branch. And we also, I have to say, have a special connection. Armenian Institute has a special connection to Laura because she's been the translator of Armenian Institute's publications, Who Are the Armenians, which was published in Turkish, which was a book by my colleague Susan Pate, who is somewhere there. If she, yeah, she's waving at us. So I think I'll stop here, Laura, and like Nick said, we'll hear from Laura to talk about her books, although she encourages all of us to ask questions in the middle of her presentation, if you feel like. But I think we should wait, listen to her, and ask your questions in the chat line, and we'll have a chance for a chat in the end.
Thank you for having us. For me, it's very exciting to connect with other Armenians or non-Armenians who are interested in Armenian history, culture in other parts of the world, even if it's through Zoom. So thank you so much for having us and giving us the chance to tell you about what we've been doing for the last 25 years. I am the part of Aras since 2015, but tonight I will go, of course, way before that and tell you about Aras's women's writing. But before going into that, I'd like to, although we've been shortly introduced, I'd like to give a little bit more information about what we're actually doing, why Aras was founded in the first place. So as Tatevik said, it was founded in 1993 by this group of intellectuals who are interested in Armenian literature, producers of the Armenian literature, reproducing it. They were an inseparable part of the intellectual circle of Armenians in Turkey. But of course, the main idea to establish Aras was not just because of introducing Armenian literature to non-Armenians. It was more building this bridge between Armenians and non-Armenians, having our voices heard through culture and literature and history. We wanted our voices to be heard from ourselves because Armenians didn't really have so much representation. So that's why they founded Aras. And since then, Aras has published nearly 280 books, and 1/4 of them are in Armenian, and we're translating books to Turkish from different languages, English, German, Spanish, French, and we are proud to say that we're bearing we're one of the bearers of the Armenian cultural life in Turkey. I want to, before I go into women's writings, I want to briefly talk about Hippo, our children's publishing house that we established in 2019. The main idea behind, and I'm telling you about Hippo because maybe, I don't know, you're doing the Meet the Publisher, so maybe in the future we'll do an episode on Hippo. We may, if you like it, because we've realized that there are not, although Aras has been publishing children's books since the beginning of Aras, they weren't, and you are in the UK, so you know it better. There are these lovely picture books everywhere, and Armenian children don't have the chance to read those books in their own mother language. And those books are beautifully illustrated, and the language itself is beautiful. The pedagogical approach is very good and whatnot. So we've decided to translate those books to Western Armenian and to Turkish. And we've established Hippo in 2019. And I think not only they are helpful to Armenian kids in Turkey, I think all the kids around the world will enjoy these books in Armenian, can enjoy. So as I said tonight, I will start, I will just mention our books on women's writings and by women writers. I think this is an important issue in so many ways because tonight I will talk about one book, but before that, as an introduction, I can tell you it's one of the questions in my mind: why do we read books? We read books for so many reasons, of course, but one of them is finding your own representation in a book, reading about an experience, any experience that you shared with the novels, with the book's character. It's a really strong feeling, and we're not always looking for that, but when we find a shared experience in a novel, I do enjoy it. I can speak for myself. I love it. So as for Armenian women, it's not that common to read in novels about Armenian women's experiences. So I think when we're talking about Armenian women writers or Armenian women representation in literature, it's not something we should be following because it's written. It's not an obligation. It's more, I think it's a need, because we read men's story everywhere. Men are everywhere. Women are not, let alone Armenian women are not. We can't read about our fellow Armenian women's experiences. So that's why I find these books very, very, very valuable. They're really important. So the first book I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I will just show you the books. The first book tonight I will talk about is Bir Adalet Feryadı. Osmanlı'dan Türkiye'ye 5 Ermeni feminist yazar, which is translated, A Cry for Justice, 5 Armenian feminist writers from Ottoman to Turkey. So this book was published in 2006. This is one of our best-selling books, but I think it has a very prominent importance in Aras's history, because not just this book, but some of Aras's books are a part of some cultural studies programs curriculum, and this is one of those books. So Aras has readers in different groups, and academic circles is one of the main groups. And this book is how Aras became better known in that group. So this book, the title itself is, I think, explanatory, but another importance of this book is that this was published in 2006, and the 5 feminist writers in this book, Elvis Gesartyan, Sırpı Yusuf, Zabel Yesayan, and Haygan Ushmak, none of their writings were translated to Turkish up to that point. And not just women's literature, one of the reasons why Aras was founded also goes back to that. So when we're thinking about literary canon, we're thinking of the whole production that was being made at the same time and how they affected each other and what was being built all together, right? So when Armenian writers were writing in Turkey, they never became a part of the this literary canon that people were making the history of. So and these 5 women were essential part of the feminist movement in Turkey, but anyone who can't speak Armenian couldn't read their texts. So this book includes passages from their writings, but also it includes studies on them, like who they were, what they did, and how they contributed to feminist movement, and the whole gender. And after the publication of the book and getting into the curriculum of of universities, this book was really crucial to understand the feminist movement in Turkey and the whole conversations about gender and general women's history in Turkey. So that's why this book has been really important, not for us, but for anyone who was interested in women's history in general. So this book, I think what happened was that we published, so I should mention, of course, the names. Melissa Bilal and Larna Ekmekçioğlu is the editors of this book. And they were both, they both graduated from Getronagan, an Armenian high school. And as they tell us, we know that Getronagan is this high school who the students of Getronagan is more politically active than any of the other Armenian school students. So they graduated from that high school together, and then they started sociology at Boğaziçi University together. And there they formed this school group, Hayhuiner. And then when they were doing this book, they knew very well about these writers. So yeah, this was 2006. Now I am going to talk about the star of the night, I can say, because when anyone talks about women's writings, an Armenian woman writer, the first person comes to mind is, of course, Zabel Yesayan. And it's understandably, I understand that. And but what happened was, it's a little funny story. So this was published in 2006, as I said, and we published In the Ruins, Averak Nerumich, these two books. We published the Armenian, the original, in 2010, and we published the Turkish version in 2014. So what non-Armenians or non-Armenian readers could read about Zabel Yesayan, could read her writings up to that point until 2014, it was not possible, although they could read from French. But in Turkey, this the main reason, of course, why she stood up from these the four other writers was mainly because she was on the list of the 24th April list. She was the only woman on the list, so it makes sense that she stood up. And but then this whole story around Zabel Yesayan became this sort of urban legend, where it was kind of not okay to say that you haven't read anything from her. Like, everyone was like, oh, I read her. And the question is, like, how did you read her? Like, it wasn't translated even. It's just chronologically, it doesn't fit the narrative, but still. So she is a star, and I have to say, she's not just one of our best-selling authors. She's in our, I guess, top 3 with Zaven Biberyan and Mgrdich Mardosyan. But the thing is, of course, it's not for nothing. She's a really good writer, and yeah, it makes sense that everyone loves her, really. So, and she's also part of some university's curriculum as well. So we published these again 2010, 2014, and as you may or may not know, we can't really call this this is a memoir. This isn't a novel. This isn't a short novel. This is a memoir. She was sent to Adana right after Adana massacre by the Armenian Patriarchate to observe and write a report on the conditions of the Armenians in Adana. And that's why she went there and made her report, and then this was published as a book. So in 2014, we have the first Zabel Yesayans. And then, of course, after the first publication, everyone was really excited about more to come. And then in 2015, we published Meliha Nuri Hanım. Meliha Nuri Hanım is a female name, but what strikes most about this is it's a Turkish woman's name. This is a short, very short novel. And this one and the next 2 short novels I will be talking about, I like to shortly mention the translator. The translator is Mehmet Fatih Uslu. He holds a PhD in Turkish literature. He's not Armenian, but he's very experienced in Armenian. He studied Armenian with Levon Zekiya in Venice. So, and he's the translator of our 3 Yesayan short novels. So Yesayan wrote this in 1920 in Paris, and it's really interesting that she chose a Turkish woman as her main character to express the pain and needs. It's a Turkish woman, of course, but I think it speaks to a general woman's pain and needs, and the whole state of mind going through a war. This is during the First World War, and this Meliha Nuri is she's volunteering at a hospital, and in an army hospital during the war. And it depicts the mind and the inner turmoil of this Ottoman Turkish woman. And I think it's my personal favorite. And very vaguely in the novel, there is an Armenian doctor in the hospital, and she vaguely mentions the Armenian genocide, not even uses those words, as if this was not written by an Armenian writer, but someone who writes a novel during that period and just puts a little detail and not saying anything about it. But I think she just doesn't want to go there and she wants to write something else. And then, of course, in next years, she will be writing, not openly, but we will feel more of her Armenianness in the next novels. So the next one, and the Armenian name of this one is Medihanuryanum, obviously. So this one, the next one we published, Hokis Aksoryal, Sürgün Ruhum, which can be translated as My Soul in Exile. In 2016, we translated this one, published this one. And this one about this painter, Emma, who lives in exile, who was living abroad and then came back to Turkey. She was born in Üsküdar. Yesayan herself is from Üsküdar. She's a lover of Üsküdar. And she wrote this in, I believe, I took a note of it, I'm sorry. But I think it was 1922. And at that time, she is herself literally in exile. So it's what strikes most about this is that this Emma, her character, goes back to her homeland. She's back home, and this the main themes of this novel, we can say, is that it's Üsküdar. Üsküdar it's just it's everywhere. She has this detailed and intense description of her district. Üsküdar is a very old district on the Asian side, on the seaside of Istanbul. And in every work, you know that she's in love with her her birthplace that she couldn't come back to after 1915, which is a sad story. I don't want to dramatize it, but it's the case. And she wrote a novel about it where the main character could go back home, but she couldn't. That's what it's so striking about this. And in the background of this novel, you read the tensions going on in the Ottoman Empire, and the questions, the notions about home, what is being in exile, because this person goes back home, but she feels herself always in exile. So just she made the character go back, but she couldn't really be there mentally, maybe we could say, because maybe she wasn't there herself. So this was the second short novel that we published. And then in 2018, we published, I love the cover of this one. I know you'll love it too. This is Verçin Pajagı, Son Kadeh, The Last Glass. The translation could be. This is, if you have the chance, this would be, although Melihanur is my personal favorite, I would recommend reading this, because for many literary critics, it's her best work. For some, it's very controversial, and the story behind is that, if I can give you a little plot about it, it's this Armenian main character, Adrinem. She's in a sad marriage, and she has two love affairs. And the first one is with a Turkish army official. And the thing is, she wrote this novel in 1916, right after genocide. And she chose to have her main character's love affair with a Turkish army official. Interesting. So many discussions about this aspect of the novel. That maybe we had one in Yesayan Room. We had it with Sevan Değirmenciyan. I know many of you know him. He's the editor of our Armenian publications. But it's a broader discussion, of course. Why did she do it and whatnot? But for one reason, that this is the reason why it's so controversial, but for the other reason, this is where we read the most about Yesayan's view on, not feminism maybe, but a view of woman, or how a woman holds herself, and like what a woman does in a marriage, and how strong she is, or how weak she does things, and all those little details. And after reading this, I heard this myself. I thought this too. I was like, this is the person we're talking about. Like she's the feminist that we're saying that she's a feminist writer, and this doesn't look like a feminist novel to me. But then after so many discussions and conversations about it, you realize it's actually very bold for her time, because even in the Armenian right now, it is still so, of course, but can you imagine like an Armenian woman having a love affair with a Turkish official in 1916 in a novel? It's too bold in a way. So after those thoughts, of course, I was like, no, she's a good feminist. She's a feminist. For her time, it's really, of course, it doesn't match with from today's point of view, from today's feminism. So many would disagree from her ideas, of course, but it's from today's point of view. So many has changed, so many steps we've taken since then. So this is all we have from Yesayan in Turkish. And now I will show you these three. They are Yesayan originals in Armenian. I will go chronologically. I'm sorry, I cannot explain you these books because I did not read them myself, and I don't feel comfortable reading from a text, and this book is about that. I don't want to do that. So if you're interested in the plots of these books, you can either talk to Sevan if you know him, because he's the editor of these books, or you can go to our website. We have an Armenian section, and there we have all the Armenians book that we're publishing. But just shortly to mention, 2017 Spasman Strahin Mech, and 18 Shnorkov Martik Yev Kulinere Yev Impostnere, and Get Hanjaner 2019. And I can tell you that we will publish The Gardens of Silahtar, that you already have in English, luckily, soon this year, hopefully. It's been translated. We're working on it. Soon that will be also published in Turkish. This is all from Yesayan. I am actually kind of nervous that I'm boring you. I hope I am not. Can I?
Absolutely not, Laura. I think everyone is shaking their head with loving this. It's just like a bedtime story. So many books condensed in one.
Thank you so much. This makes me really happy that I can talk for how it's half an hour already, and I'm almost through. Okay, I will just make it quicker. Now, you may know this book. It's actually Recovering Armenia by Larna Ikçioğlu. It was published in 2016. We published it very recently in February. This Recovering Armenia, but we called it Bir Milleti Diriltmek. I'll just tell you direct to the English. reviving a nation, reconstructing Armenians in Turkey within the framework of gender. So the original name is Recovering Armenia, the Limits of Belonging in Post-Genocide Turkey. It's never sexy to have Armenian name in a title in Turkey. The books won't sell, so we just removed Armenia part, and we just said, and I think it says more in a way to say Recovering Armenia, reviving a nation, because it's the story of the attempt of trying to revive the Armenian nation right after the genocide. So I'm not going to go deep in the history, as you may all know more or less what happened right after genocide. So the Armenians were lobbying for an independent Armenia, and things were looking optimistic, of course. And at the same time, right after 1915, from the aspect of women and children, there were women, kidnapped women in non-Armenian households, children in non-Armenian households. Some of these women are pregnant by their either abusers or the people who kidnapped them, whatever. And again, the children in orphanages. So the whole idea was to revive this nation. Well, it goes to this Wilson principles, the self-determination things, and that you just have to, increase the number of your people so that you can have a land. So Armenians were working towards that. And of course, women played a very crucial role in that movement. So Larna Ekmekçioğlu asks, what she asked in this book is, women were given this responsibility to revive the nation, and some of a very important Haygin, the women's journal published by Haygin Schmark from 1919 to 1933, and it was banned by the government in 1933. She had no other chance to keep publishing it. So Haygin played an important role, because all the feminists, all the women intellectuals who were still in Turkey, who were alive and in Turkey, were writing on the pages, speaking to women, what they should be doing for the revival of the Armenian nation, because they were seen as the preservers of the tradition, the religion, the mother tongue, you name it, that the mother is all of it. So Larna asked this question: how would a feminist stay a feminist and be Armenian at the same time? Was that even possible? And she does that this is a very detailed work on how she goes through the pages of Haygins and shows us several passages, what were being published in Haygin. It just takes you to those times and how women were feeling, and the kind of the burden on their shoulders. So this book is about that, and first half of it is about that. So then there is no Armenia, there is no independent Armenia. In 1923, we come to 1923, and there's the new Turkish Republic. And this is also not a funny story, but kind of funny. So in 1923, when the Republic was established, so many Armenian newspapers, journals were closed, shut down in a day. But Haygin was not touched, and Mark questions herself, and Larna, of course, too. They're thinking, did this happen because it was a woman's journal and they didn't think they could do anything to harm them because it's just a woman's journal. Maybe because when you look to Haydn's pages, you'll see that they were working towards an independent Armenia. So kind of jokes on them, but eventually they banned the journal in 1933. Now I am going to, the next one is not just my favorite, I think everyone's favorite. This is one of, this is not just the best, one of the best known. This created a whole genre in Turkey. I'm very proud to say. This is a cookbook memoir. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of a little tired, so I'm a little confused, but I will be okay. This is a cookbook memoir. It's an original by Aras. It's our book. And it's written by Takvi Tomasyan. Takvi Tomasyan is an integral part of our publishing house. She worked as a part of the, not just the editorial group, she was everything for a very long time for Aras, and she, of course, still is, although she doesn't come to the office anymore, but she still is. So she wrote this book. Takvi Tomasyan's brother is one of the founders of Aras, I should mention. So what this book does, why it was so important in the publishing world in general, there was no other cookbooks until then, a cookbook memoir until then, that gave the recipe and told the family history in the same book. And I'm happy to say, although in 2018, we translated this book to Armenian, and in 2012, this was also translated to French, if you're willing to read it. This is also in French by Edition Parenthèse, and it goes not the same name. It goes, I took a note, Mémoire culinaire du Bosphore. And this is what it does, gives you the recipes of especially Bolsahai Armenian cuisine, and gives you the recipes along with the family traditions, along with the family history, which signals, of course, the Armenian history, Armenian traditions, what were being cooked during holidays, special days, events, or just at a regular dinner. And it's loved by so many, of course, because it was something new to them. If I go back to where I started, as I said, the founders of Aras wanted to introduce Armenians to build this bridge, right? And as we all know, cuisine is like the easiest bridge to build if we're gonna we're gonna talk about another culture. It's the closest or easiest way for getting to know another culture. So this takes place in the family history, or the stories that she tells takes place between 1922 and 1950 in Istanbul. Yeah, so this is a cookbook memoir, and not just, and I have to say the reason I included this book is not just because it's written by although it's very important, it's written by an Armenian woman. She took the recipes from her grandmothers. Oh, I forgot to tell you the whole title of it. It's just Cheer to Your Table, What Has Left in My Palate and in My Mind from My Granny's Kitchen. So she gives the recipes, she also tells the stories, the family stories that she also heard from her grandmother. So it's the narrative of women through recipes, through history, and everything else. The next book is also a cookbook memoir that we published in 2019. after Sofranız Şen Olsun, I can say that there has been many cookbook memoirs that has been published. So it's one of those, we can say, but the striking difference of this book is, well, as you know, Istanbul, more or less, Istanbul is everywhere. If you're going to a meyhane, you're eating Istanbul mezes, mostly. And everyone has a relative in Istanbul, or everyone has immigrated to Istanbul at some point in their life. So Istanbul cuisine is more or less known to people. So when you're reading recipes in Sofranız Şen Olsun, at least you heard of them. But this book, I worked on this book as well, and so many recipes that I haven't even heard the ingredients of, because it's so original. It's from Diyarbakır. Amida'nın sofrası. Amida is one of the names, ancient names of Diyarbakır, the table of Amida. It's translated. So Silva Özyerli is the writer of this book. She's from Dikranagat. She's from Diyarbakır. She was born and raised there, but as so many Dikranagatsis did at that time, they were sent to Istanbul so that they can learn Armenian, go to Armenian schools, be a part of the Armenian community through school. But of course, their families were still in Diyarbakır, and until she went to school, of course, she was in Diyarbakır. In summers, she was in Diyarbakır. But again, this is very important because it's a regional cookbook, and it's also important because as she tells her family history, of course, she tells the history of what happened to Armenians after at the second half of the 20th century. So she must be around her 50s, so I'm guessing it was like 1960, 1965, 70s when she was telling, which was a very chaotic atmosphere, starting to get chaotic in the eastern regions of Turkey. And she tells a story how hard it was to be the last remaining Armenians in Diyarbakır, amongst Kurdish people, amongst Turkish people, and in that sort of just starting turmoil. So that's why it's not just a very good recipe book, it's a very good history book, I can say. Okay, I'm getting to the end. The next, now I will take you to America. And the next two books I'm going to talk about is Nancy Krikoria. I believe you know her. The first book, Nancy's first book is, of course, Zabel. We haven't published it. It was published by another publisher, but we're willing to publish it if we can. But the first one we published from her is Dreams of Bread and Fire, which was originally published in 2003, and we published it in 2017. And this goes back to what I said in the beginning. This was the first novel that I read, which included my own experiences. And to shortly mention about that, as an Armenian woman, I mean, to shortly mention about that, they were Armenian young women's sexuality, let's say, or the restrictions they face, or several impositions on that what careers you should pursue, or that you should get married within the community, or how much skin can you show. The funny thing is, we're not from the same generation, Nancy and I, but as America being a more progressive society, let's say, and Turkey less, when I was growing up, the questions that the restrictions or the impositions that she were facing at her time, I faced them myself. So I was struggling myself to how to stay in the Armenian community, but at the same time, just be my own woman and do whatever I want, however I feel like doing. And this kind of gives you not a solution, of course, but tells you that don't worry, we went through the same thing. So I say for this novel, I say, like, if I were to give a young Armenian girl a book, I would definitely give her this, and I know it would at least make her feel somewhat better. I'm not saying it's a happy-go-lucky novel, by the way, because it's not just she faces, as we all did, it's not about her experience, her identity, a woman's identity. It's also about discovering about her family's history through her grandmother, which then became the theme of her Zabel novel. But she also takes you through this hardships of hearing from your own grandmother how it was hard, the hardships, what they went through in genocide. It's one thing to hear it from a man, and it's another thing to hear it from a woman. So it's really powerful in that way. And the other novel, I actually spoke to Nancy just yesterday, and I'm the editor of these two novels, but I never know how she came to. I knew about that, but I didn't know about this. So what happened was, this is a Second World War French resistance, and there's this Armenian family living in Paris and trying to stay alive during the resistance. And the story of this book was that she heard about Misak Manusyan's story, and she was really touched by it, like how he was a genocide survivor and immigrated to Paris, and then became an important part, took an important role in the French resistance, and then died. So she was really touched by this whole story, and she wanted to write a novel about it, but not writing a novel about Misak Manusyan. But then she thought the whole pattern of it is that this Armenian family who experienced Armenian genocide came to Paris to find peace and found themselves in the war and in the fear of the Nazis, and yet another genocide, actually. So it's just the whole, then the whole idea of this recurring history and how Armenians experienced it in 1915 and then in Second World War. This is the story of oh, I'm sorry, and this is All the Light There Was, the original name is, if you're interested. All the Light There Was, and I think it was published in 2013 in the US. And the last one I will be talking about is, you may also know this one. This is Lion Woman's Legacy. Original name is Lion Woman's Legacy. It was published in 1992. And you may know Arlen Voski-Avakyan. She's very well known within the feminist movement in the US. And not just now, in the 60s, she wasn't just a part of the feminist movement, she was a part of the civil rights movement. Not a part, but she was an activist at the school. I shouldn't exaggerate it, but she was an activist, an active activist. And this is, in ways, although Nancy and she are not from the same generation as well, and she faces much more severe restrictions from her family as being an Armenian woman. And just because of this oppression, she gets married, and she has this is an autobiography, and it's very strong. So the Dreams of Bread and Fire, although it's fiction, it does have the story is somewhat based on Nancy's own experiences, of course, but this one is an autobiography, and that's why it's in that way more powerful. And it's not just, this isn't a story of a woman who experiences her sexuality and her view of feminism and all that theoretically, but she becomes an active person on the field, and how it was challenging. And the sexuality part is, I think, very crucial, because although she gets married to a man, she, on the way, she realizes actually she is a homosexual, and it's also something that we, not as women, not as a society, discuss about at all. Like, as if homosexuality doesn't exist in Turkey. I'm not very familiar how is it in diaspora, but I don't feel like it has its cores as it does in other, not as a minority, I should say. So I think in that way, it's also very powerful to read about her experiences as being a woman and being a lesbian, and how it was challenging for her. Yeah, I think I'm finished. Thank you for listening. It's been an hour. Yeah, thank you for listening. That was such a joy.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much. It's just, you took us to a wonderful journey through Zabel Yesayan to our days. It's just fascinating. We could listen to more. We can have you as regular bedtime storyteller for us.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. It means a lot.
No, it's wonderful. I was just looking at the chat line. There's lots of love coming your way, lots of demands and recommendations as well. People suggest translations, people suggest titles. We'll read them out. And before we start reading out people's questions, and please put your questions in the chat, or we can unmute you to ask your question. I wanted to get in there first with one or two questions and ask you something which I'm sure is mostly on everyone's mind as well. We talk very often at Armenian Institute how amazing you all are, not only living in Istanbul, working in Istanbul, but creating Armenian content, publishing Armenian books, topics which will be considered dangerous and undesirable. What's happening? What are the trends? I mean, you're all doing an incredible job. I'm sure everyone will agree with me.
You asked, what are the trends? Did you say?
Yeah, is the situation changing? Do you see any? Is it becoming easier, harder?
Generally, I can say the political atmosphere is more severe. It's not getting easier. It's getting more difficult, and no one is sure how long this period will last. But we are hopeful, as we've always been. The issue around Armenians also not being sure at all. I can tell you right now that I think we're safe and we're not messing with us. It's okay. Nothing's happening. I can't promise for tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. It's all up to the political conjuncture. But right now, we see no threats. But I can mention just briefly. Last year, we have published in 2019 was again the Armenian music in diaspora, Silvia Alageci's book, and the book is about the music in the Armenian diaspora, really. And we were publishing Suni's books, and we have Michel Marian's books, Armenian genocide books. So we have books with genocide titles. So this was about particularly that topic, but we had on the back of the cover, we said, she briefly, just as a background, she mentions Armenian genocide and how these diaspora communities, especially in Lebanon, were built. So that's why when and I wrote the back cover actually myself. When I was writing it, I was just taking through a whole this thing, like genocide happened, and these people have to they settled some other in other places and etc. And we got, this was right before Corona, but they were willing to take the book to court. If I'm saying it, if I'm making myself clear, is that the word? I'm not familiar with law English, I'm sorry, but that's what happened.
Wonderful.
And they called in our, oh, thank you. I don't really know the law terms though, but they called in our translator and our editor of the book to the prosecutor's room, I can say. My connection is unstable. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Ah, okay.
Yes, we can.
So last year we had that kind of a warning, and it happened at the same time. Maybe you know, Hrant Dink Foundation had every year they have this 2 days conference where they collect papers from all over the world, and people come in and they it's always about a region, specific region, and it's a 2-day conference. And last year it was about Kayseri, and they usually, what they do is that if it's about Kayseri, they go to Kayseri and they do the conference in Kayseri at a university. So just like 3 days before the government has canceled the whole event, just giving an excuse like, well, because of the safety reasons, and was completely a lie. So this happened at the same time. So at that time, we asked ourselves, what's going on? Why are we on the spot again? Like, Hrant Dink Foundation getting canceled, we're getting questioned on a book. What's going on? Because if you think about it, of course, the government knows everything that we're doing. they're aware of every publication we're publishing. We're sending our books. It's an obligation to send it to the published books to the government for them to see it, check it, and see if there's something that they don't like in it. So I don't know. They, at that point, they decided to just give a little, just threat, maybe a warning, I can say, but then it led to nothing. And I'm thinking maybe because of Corona, I'm not really sure, but then it just kind of stopped. And then of course we had the Artsakh war, but again, non-direct threats were against the Armenian people, not at least from the government. I'm pretty sure there were so many on personal level and relationships. Could I cover your question? Was that the one? Is that the one you asked?
I mean, it's overwhelming to hear all about the situation and how bravely you still operate, and it's heartbreaking to hear endless persecutions against books and authors and characters. We hope for stability and open speech, and Aras being able and everyone else being able to publish anything they want. Laura, I have millions of questions, but I can see the chat line getting longer and longer, so I'll read out some questions for you. There's a question. Hera Sukas, who was here, she's from a very wonderful Bolsa High Center from Toronto. She left, but she says very happy to hear that you'll be publishing Gardens of Seliktar in Armenian.
It's in Turkish though.
Yeah, but she was asking for it in Armenian, so.
She asked for it?
Yeah,
I should.
And she was asking for Hokisak Soreal as well. So there you go. This is to put on your next editorial meeting.
Okay.
Tamara had a question. Tamara Wilson. Tamara, would you like to be unmuted and ask your question yourself, because you have a very specific question about the book?
Hello. Am I? Hi, Laura. Hi, Tetevik. Thank you so much for the talk. Now, I have to see the question to remember what it was. So bear me with it. I think my question was regarding Yesayan's last book. I forgot what it was called. I think The Last Cup or The Last Glass. You mentioned that her feminism was too brave. I think it was in relation to that book. And my question was, were you making that comment in relation to the Turkish lover alone that was mentioned in the book? Or, for instance, in comparison to Hayganish Mark, how would you say as Yesayan's portrayal of women were in that period within that book? Was that also too bold for the period, again, not being anachronistic about it?
It wasn't just the Turkish official part. It was more that too, of course, but the way, I'm going to be cheesy here, but the way she opens her heart and she just tells it all, and without any barriers. She's very open, and I'm not an expert on the texts that were made during her period. I just read hers, but from the experts, from what I know, they say no one wrote a text that is just as bold to be this. I think the main word could be here. She was just being she was being honest, and women were not expected to be that honest at that period. I mean, of course, I think we can make the comparison here to Virginia Woolf, you know, how for her time, when you look at how she was being regarded and what she wrote and how it was being perceived, I think that was the same perception goes to Yesayan, although not as maybe a little less bold than Virginia Woolf, but still so. If I can make, not just because of the Turkish official, the whole narrative of it and how she takes us through the ideas of her mind and how she's actually very happy. The thing is, so she doesn't have just one love affair in the novel. She has two love affairs, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but for some reason, the first one ends. And she just, even there, she's very honest about how she's happy that this one ends too, and how she wants her marriage to end too, and why she stays in the marriage really, and all those worries of being an upper class woman and what she wants in life and what she doesn't. And
Fantastic.
I think it's also bold in that way, because as a feminist, you're expected to act a certain way and have certain ideas, and she's being very honest about it. She's very honest about it, and that's why I think the controversy leaves. It's basically here that she is a feminist, but she's a feminist who wants to stay in a marriage for just different reasons, obviously, and she's being very open about it. Was it okay?
No, that was wonderful. Thank you. I mean, I think she made her mark as a feminist with her first book as well. So I don't think anyone would counter her for not being a feminist. So yes, thank you for your answer.
Thank you for your question. Thank you.
Laura, your cookbook mentions resonated with our audience, and surprisingly, Tamara herself was saying she hugs the cookbook sometimes, and Garo suggests to try to sell the English version in the US. So there you go, global domination plans for you. Petros Aslanyan is asking what percentage of your readership is Turkish?
That's a really good question, although I don't, but I can say we have so many Kurdish readers to begin with. The only statistic I do have is the book fairs that we're going to. I don't really know how many Turkish readers we have, to be honest, but I can say 1/3 maybe. It's 1/3 Turkish, 1/3 Armenian, and you expect Armenians to be more, but they're not. They're not. 40,000 Armenians, I think we have 3,000 followers or so. I have so many Armenian friends and they don't even read Aras's books. It's a funny story, really.
Thank you.
Richard Danusyan. Hi.
You're there. I think Kuzida had a question. I'll try to unmute you so you can ask your question about...
Me?
No, Kuzida had a question. So I read out your question for you. Okay. So she was asking, will there be any works on the region of Ardahan and Kars? I'm asking because you published Yesayan works on Izmir or Van.
That's a really good question. And not if I'm not sure. Is there Yesayan's Ardahan Kars edition? Is there one, an original one? Can I write that to you later? Because if you look at the back cover, you can see all the books that will come out at some point. I'm not sure if there's a Kars. I know there's an Ani edition. Yes. So that should cover it, I think. That must be covering Kars and Ardahan. I'm not really sure, but it should be, I think. Kars Ani. Yeah, that's the one is called Kars Ani, actually. That should cover Ardahan, logically thinking. Oh, hard to see you.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I see my colleague Nick, who is specializing in Ani history, nodding in approval, so he must know. He must know what is it. RP Atabekan asks for more serious session on Zabel Yesayan's publication sometime. Everyone who talked to me in the last few months knows that I haven't stopped talking about Yesayan. So yes, definitely, let's talk about it. I would love that.
Maybe you know, last year we have published his autobiography in French. He was, the reason we published it in French, he had written it in French and it has been never published. He written it on just plain yellow pages and just kept it somewhere at his house. And Harvey Georgeli, he found it and then he worked on them, and last year we published the French, and this year we're going to publish the Turkish translation of it. No, not an Armenian version.
Hoping for Armenian or English, but it's been a wonderful discovery, and we have a few copies in our library. Once we open, London-based people, you are most welcome to come and read it. Nuritsa, you have 2 questions. I'll unmute you. You can ask them in person.
First of all, Shachnora Galem, I want to say that I'm very proud of being an Aras author, which was arranged by Hrant Dink for the book to be published on Arshil Gorky in Turkish, to my surprise. I didn't think it was publishable in Turkish because there is so much on the genocide. My questions are, do you have, are there any instances where a book is rejected or censored or turned down when you present it for publication, or when has that happened?
That has not happened, no. But in the past, this is a story, we can mention self-censoring, but in the past. For example, Mırçınların Verçaluysa, Zabel Yesayan's novel. We had some, in the end, where he gives a brief history on the Armenian genocide, and he tells actually how everything goes back to that part of the history that he just talks about it, like maybe like almost 10 pages or so.
Yeah.
So what happened was that in the past, not because of our we didn't do that. It wasn't because of us. So what happened was that Zaman Biberyan's that book was published by the Armenian Teachers Association, and they took out that part just because of self-censoring. And then as we were publishing it, we published it in that, when the first publication came out, it was with that self-censored version, but then we fixed it in the last edition. But I may be wrong here, but I don't think, I think Robert's in the room. Maybe Robert, if there is anything like that happened in the past, maybe he could answer.
Yeah, Robert, let me unmute you. Robert is Laura's colleague at Aras, I'm sure many of you know. Robert,
while you're doing that, I remember when this book was being translated that there was some discussion about whether to use the word genocide or not. And
yes,
to my surprise,
that's true. Actually,
the opinion was, it's go ahead and do it, and it's okay. There was a lot of discussion just about the word.
I think that.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm Robert. I'm from Aras, and maybe I can add something to what Laura said. Yes, she was true. There was this kind of auto-censor, self-censor, yes, maybe before 2002, 2004. Because after that, as you know, Turkey was opening itself to become a member of EU, and today's government, of course, had different approach to Armenian issue or democratization in the country. Before 2000, maybe 4, there was a very hard self-censor because we couldn't publish anything about genocide. Some publishers in Turkey, like Belge Publishing House of Ragıp Zarakolu, was publishing the books about the Armenian genocide, but as Aras, as Armenian, let's say, intellectual circles of Istanbul, we were limiting ourselves only to the literature, and we were only speaking about the genocide through the inline, some not mentioning the word, telling about the events, but sometimes cutting the most violent scenes from the text, unfortunately. But after that, and especially after the assassination of Hrant Dink in 2007, we freed ourselves to that kind of censure, and we started to publish more open books about the Armenian question. After 2015, when I returned from Agos, I was in Agos between 2006 and 2015, and Laura started in 2015 as well. There is no censor, there is no auto-censor. We are trying to hold a more courageous line, and we are publishing books about genocide, and we are publishing literature books which are mentioning the genocide. So today, although there are lots of pressure on us, although the general situation in the country is not so easy, but we are not diminishing our voice, and we try to be bold. That's all I can say. And thank you for this wonderful event, and thank you, Laura, for representing us so nicely and amazingly. Thank you.
Thank you.
we should be thanking you for your wonderful work. Maritza, you had another question as well, I think. Yeah.
I'm really interested to know if there are any young Armenian writers, male or female, in the community who write novels or other writings that you have published, either in Armenian or in Turkish, in fact?
In Armenian, we doesn't unfortunately have it, but I think isn't it a more broader problem that we as Armenians have? We can't do anything about it. In Turkish, though, we have Karin Karakaşlı. She's a Karin Karakaşlı.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah, she's a poet, and she also has novels. But as Aras, we're only publishing her poems. I don't think we have other Armenian writers from Turkey, right?
Berjuk has a theater. But she doesn't write. I forget her surname.
We had Jacqueline Çelik.
Mm-hmm.
She had two short stories books. I don't know. I think that's it. I mean, all the writers I mentioned, like Takvi Tomasyan and Silo Ziyarli, of course, they're Armenian. Although they're not writing novels, they're still writing, and just as good as a novel, I could say. So, although in Turkish, there are people who are contributing to literary world in a way.
It's important with all the previous publications. It's not only preservation of literary heritage, but encouragement and empowerment of new writers as well. Laura, probably one last question. Richard, I'll unmute you because it's an important question I wanted to ask as well. And then we can let you go to bed because I know it's very late in Istanbul and you kindly join.
Thanks, Tatvik. I always like to be unmuted. Wonderful. Laura, wonderful to see you as always. Great talk. Fantastic. And as much as we love the annual pilgrimage to Aras's office and have to see your new offices upstairs now as well, two things for you. How can we all support this amazing work that you're doing? How can we support it? How can we be part of it and just support you on that? The other thing is the books that you have. Can these be purchased online from buyers outside of Turkey?
I'll start with the second one because it's easier.
Okay.
Yes, you can. We're getting orders via mail order. I think when you just send a mail to us, then you can purchase them and they'll take you through the steps. Our colleagues will take you through it. About the first one, as to give you a little insight, of course, it's hard to survive financially as an Armenian publisher because we could easily say we're like a niche publishing house. We can't produce books in just large amounts and just make great profits out of it. And just there are like, we publish 1,000 to 1,500. I never know to say this, but you got it. So it's really hard for us to stay financially sustainable in a way, but we are doing it. It's not that bad. Last year we have established this Yesayan Room, which I was going to mention just a little bit, and how it was actually the whole story behind this very sweet, I can say. So what happened was that we moved to our new offices, and it's rather a bigger office than it used to be, and we had this just a room there, like a big living room in the office, and we really didn't know what to do with it. And we were like, why don't we just make a multi-purpose event hall here that we open it to anyone who wants to be a part of it. But we named it Yesayan Room after Zabel Yesayan, it's open for use to, especially to any women's group. But the thing was, we went through a whole rebuilding process, which required lots of money. And what we did was just, we asked our friends, our Armenian friends, non-Armenian friends, everyone around us who are the followers of Aras Publishing. And we asked them if just each one of you just give us like 1,000 Turkish lira, which I don't know, like 100 pounds, I think. And we can just build a new place, and it's not going to be just the offices of Aras. It's going to be a place for everyone who just wants to gather here for a culture and arts event, who wants to organize an event here. It's going to open to anyone who are close to our worldview. And we did it. It's just 100 people all around us just gave us 1,000 lira, and we just did that, which was amazing to see. And we're so thankful to everyone who helped us. So I think, of course, just purchasing our books. Now we have Hippo, and as I mentioned earlier, it's Hippo. When we started publishing Western Armenian Hippo books, now they're being, you can purchase them in Upread Books in Los Angeles, and I think one other bookstore in France bought them too. But it's, we have that problem there that we don't have that many children in Turkey. So we're like, if the people in diaspora bought these children's books, then it'd be sustainable to producing these books would be sustainable, and so on. So of course, buying our books and just anything like that would be helpful. But from time to time, just gönülden ne koparsa is what we say in Turkish. It's just like, if you're willing to help, of course, not just giving something, but to make a project together, to donation for a purpose, or if you want Zabel Yesayan's Armenian book to be published and you want to be a sponsor for it, we're open to any cooperations, I can say. Thank you. It's great to see you both, really.
Thank you, Laura. I have to say, if you don't know, if anyone doesn't know, Richard Anushan is Armenian Institute's trustee and treasurer, ever practical with his desire to support and help everyone. And I know Richard also a bit of self-promotion about our publishing activities, that Richard has been instrumental in publishing this book, which you will recognize with.
Yeah, I know.
I supported a lot. I ask you, ladies and gentlemen.
Richard already mentioned this in his annual visits.
Yes, and which Aras was hugely helpful in that, because all of the pictures which make that book so much more, which enriches the book, is all due to Aras and their connection with the family member, and we would never have known about that individual without Aras's intervention. So that helped enormously in that book. It really did.
Yeah.
And there's a Turkish version of the book. Yes, there's a Turkish version of the book that you did, I think, in 2015 or so, something like, maybe even earlier.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it was much.
Soruyorum hanımlar ve beyler. Size soruyorum hanımlar ve beyler.
I'm pretty sure it's before 2015, because it was there when I came to Aras, but I'm not really certain when.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would encourage everyone to visit Aras's wonderful website. We had a big delivery this August, a big box, which was wonderful, like Christmas presents. We had children's books, photography books, literature, you name it. They have fantastic selection. So please have a look. And I'd like to say a big thank you from everyone, and I'm going to spotlight my colleague Nick, who'll say good night to all of us, and continuing to what Laura was saying, talk about fundraising and supporting Armenian organizations.
Yes, of course. So firstly, obviously, thank you so much to Laura and the friends at Aras for this really lovely event this evening. If you enjoyed it, or if you have suggestions for how we can improve our events, then I've put a feedback form into the chat. We'd really like to hear from you. We want to make sure that we're running events that people find helpful and that are run as smoothly as possible. Also, of course, with literary heritage, one of the key aspects here is making sure that literature is available and accessible. And here at the AI with our library, we're running a fundraiser at the moment in order to create an online catalogue of our library, which is unique in the UK and one of the largest of its kind in Europe. And that online catalogue will also include some select volumes which are going to be digitized as well. So it's a really important project. Please do give generously if you're able. As I said, this event tonight is part of a series of events for Women's History Month and in celebration of International Women's Day. So this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. UK time, we have an event on Armenian women in science and innovation. I encourage you to go and have a look at our website or on social media to see the incredible panel that my colleagues have put together for that evening. And then next Thursday on the 25th at 7 p.m. UK time, we'll have an event. Well, tonight we've mentioned some cookbooks. The cookbook Lavash, the bread that launched 1,000 meals, where we'll hear from the writers there and see a demonstration as well of making such classics as Jingle of Huts. As well as events, we're also releasing podcasts. So for International Women's Day, you can see a podcast with Maro Matosyan, who is the founder of the Women's Support Center in Yerevan. Incredibly important work. You can see that in the link that I've just put in the chat or on the website. And also please do look out this Friday for the next podcast for International Women's Month from Dr. Özlem Belçim Galip, who is a Kurdish writer and academic who's worked a lot on the representation of Armenians and worked with Armenian communities as well. So we hope to see you there and to see you enjoying all of the different media that we're trying to put out there. But all that's left to say for tonight is thank you so much to Laura and the friends at Aras. Thank you to everyone who came. Teşekkürler ederim arkadaşlar. Şad şnorhakal enk angerner and hope to see you soon. Good night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Good night. Bye-bye.